So, welcome back, everybody. I'm with Peter again. Hello, Peter.
Hi.
Before we carry on our journey, or Peter's journey, just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone for watching, for supporting, for following, and for your comments as well. We've had some lovely comments, and they really are very encouraging. We're going to be having occasionally some bonus materials, some outtakes, and sometimes we might explore additional parts of the conversation or asides that maybe myself and Peter have had. Sometimes we may even have guest interviewers or interviewees, so do look out for those. But thank you again for following and for watching us, and please do share this with everybody and anybody who you think might appreciate watching and listening. So Peter, how's it been going since we last spoke?
It's going well, thanks, Duncan. There are, if you remember, I said before, the whole piece, the whole symphony, will consist of 4 movements, 4 main sections. I've now sketched out the first 2 of those, which is fantastic. I've got sort of half the way, which feels very nice, sort of achievement to have got even half the way. When I say sketch, I mean just that, really. It's not in a finished format. It's not something I want to show to anybody else particularly. I certainly couldn't put this in front of the orchestra and get them to play it. It's not at that point. But what I've got is I've got enough of the information there, of the basic material, the tunes, the rhythms, the accompaniment. I've got enough of that in there, so I can go back to it and complete the picture, if you like, going from the sketch to the finished article.
And how's the tone of the pieces going? Because you had quite a clear idea of how they were going to be.
Yeah, very good question. The first movement, I think, is coming out more or less as I perceived it before, fairly dark, I think is what I said. The second movement, however, is somewhat different. I'd said lyrical and smooth, that sort of thing, for it beforehand, but it's turned out rather differently. Can I explain, give you a couple of ideas of how that's
absolutely
happened? So that the first movement starts off almost literally dark. It starts off with all the low instruments of the orchestra. So you've got the bass drum, which gives a sort of thud, or a low thud. The timpani drums, both of them playing together, and they're always quite low sounds. Then you've got the trombones, the tuba, the contrabassoon, which is like a bassoon but even lower sound. That's in the mix. And then also the double basses, the biggest part of the string family, and they make low noises as well. So adding those all together, there's quite a sort of deep, murky sound right at the very beginning. I just had this idea of something actually slightly aggressive, with literally 2 notes like this. Okay, now that's shorter than any tune you've ever heard, so it's not a tune, you might call it a little motif. It's hardly even a theme, is it? And then I thought, well, that idea, it's quite abrupt, almost too abrupt. I need an extra note is what I felt. So I need an extra note in the middle of those 2, which will make it quicker. So I played around with things like, see, the first note and the last note are the same, and I've just stuck an extra one in the middle. Seems a bit ordinary to me. Tried various things, and then what I ended up with was this. So the second note has sort of gone boil. If you sang that, it'd sound like a yodel. Wow. And then I've just got this 3 notes motif, little tiny little cell of music, if you like, and I repeat that several times, so you get something like this. And that is the beginning of that theme, which is, I wouldn't use the word dark for it, but it's quite tense, quite urgent, and a lot of the movement is based on that. Moving on to the second movement, which I said a minute ago has turned out, or is turning out, rather differently from how I initially envisaged it. What I've done is I've used a bass line, essentially, and I've based the movement on this bass line. Let me just play you the first bit of the bass line. It goes like this. That's about half of it. It carries on fairly similarly. And what I do is I use that. Essentially, that is going on all the time. I modify it a bit, change its rhythm, break it up a little bit, put one or two other notes in the middle, so it doesn't sound like an exact repeat every time. But essentially, it's there all the way through the movement, which is about 6-7 minutes. It's the sort of thing that's done a lot in non-classical music, so a lot of pop music uses repetitive bass lines. Classical music doesn't do it so much, but this is a particular format. It's called a passacaglia. It's a very old idea of using a bass line and then weaving other stuff around it. This passacaglia idea, it's quite a nice choice for me as a composer to have made, because it gives you something to hang the music off. So the upshot of all of that is that the movement is quite changeable. There are sections which are a bit more upbeat, there are sections which are a bit more lyrical and downbeat, sure, as I perhaps originally thought. But it's quite a varied movement with lots of change in it.
How are you feeling about the deadline at the moment?
I feel okay. I'm starting on the third movement now, and in my head, I'm hoping to have finished that within the next 10 days, 2 weeks, maybe.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That feels very quick. We're at the beginning of September. Already you're on the third movement. And to me, and you've got the 9th of December. So it feels very quick. Is it normally this quick?
I can see how that seems quick to have got to this point. But as I said before, what I've written thus far is in sketch form. It's not finished. So if, say, I can finish the sketch of the third movement by the middle of September, the middle of this month, and then the sketch of the last movement by the end of the month, that's my basic idea in my head, then I've got to go back and redo stuff through the whole thing. And I'm sure that will take me another month. Because it's surprising, even when you feel you've got quite close to the end with this sort of thing, there are a lot of quite time-consuming bits to do. I've got to create a part for every player. And each one of those has got to look good. It's got to be easy to read and well-formatted and all that sort of stuff. I've got to check through each part for that, and also for anything I might have missed about how it's written, how the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, essentially. So that sort of last-minute proofreading stuff can take quite a while.
So one of the things that we've been talking about is your suggestion that you do video diaries. So tell us a bit more about that.
The idea, essentially, is that whilst I'm in the middle of, composing, working stuff out, I can talk to the camera about it, especially if I get to a bit where I'm, not sure what I'm up to, maybe hit a bit of a brick wall. I mean, it could be that, but actually it could be sort of any part of the process that I can just turn to the camera and say, "Ooh, I like that bit. That really worked well. I didn't expect it to, but it does." Or flip, this note is just not working.
What's the coming week have in store for you?
I've got a fair amount of time in my diary which I can devote to composition, so that's nice. And I can really get into the third movement, which I've now started. And hopefully I can get to the point where I feel I've, got a good chunk of that under my belt. And also I hope I can get on and do some more of the video diarying along with that, which would be nice.